Multiple devices එකවර connect කළ හැකි. Internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber. Multiple devices එකවර connect කළ හැකි. Internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
Tonight, more assistance. US President Joe Biden has announced $20 million in additional assistance to strengthen food security in Sri Lanka. The opinion of the masses. The Public Utilities Commission begins public consultation on the electricity tariff revision proposed by the Ceylon Electricity Board. All options. Fuel supply limited to essential services. 2 Sri Lankan ministers leave to Qatar with hopes of obtaining a credit line of fuel. All in favour. Cabinet greenlights gazetting of 22nd Amendment to the Constitution. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday the 20th of June 2022.
නව ලයිෆ් බොයි කොහොම ස්වභාවික කොහොම සාරය සමග හානිකර පැරබන් රහිතයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. My name is Andrew Bernard. Now, the Public Utilities Commission began their public consultation on the electricity tariff revision proposed by the Ceylon Electricity Board today. According to its chairman, Janaka Ratnayaka, the public can now mail their opinions on the proposals to the Commission for 3 weeks or 21 days. The PUCSL says it will be taken into consideration public recommendations before announcing the proposed tariff hike.
The Public Utilities Commission today opened public consultation on the proposed electricity tariff increase by the Ceylon Electricity Board and on the counter-proposal presented by the Commission. According to the proposal of the CEB, it is suggested that the average monthly bill of ₹54.27 be charged from families consuming electricity units below 30 to ₹507.65, which is a massive hike of 835%. They also propose the average monthly bill of families consuming units between 31 and 60 to be hiked to ₹1,488.55 from ₹192.55. For those who consume between 61 and 90 units, the CEB proposes their average monthly bill to be increased by 276% from ₹649.06 to ₹2,438.50. The amount of ₹1,570.49 charged from families consuming units between 91 and 120 is proposed to be hiked to ₹3,545.98. The Public Utilities Commission has, however, recommended the government to provide a safety net to these categories without imposing massive tariff hikes. The PUCSL suggests a hike to the average monthly bill of families consuming electricity units below 30 to ₹227.65, which is only a 320% increase. The average monthly bill of families consuming units between 31 and 60 cents was proposed to be hiked only up to ₹658.67. The Commission has also recommended to hike the bill of families consuming units between 61 and 90 units to ₹649.06, that is 97% increase. In the meantime, a proposal has been made for the revision of energy rates for domestic purposes as well. Accordingly, it is proposed to increase the unit price charged from families consuming electricity units below 30 from ₹2.50 to ₹8. The proposal has been made to hike the monthly fixed charge of this category from ₹30 to ₹150. Further, the unit price of families consuming electricity units between 31 and 60, 61 and 90 has been proposed to be increased from their existing rate of ₹4.85 and ₹10 to ₹60 and ₹90 respectively. More details of the electricity tariff hike proposal can be obtained from the PUCSL official website www.puscsl.com. pucsl.gov.lk. The public can mail their opinion to the Commission on the proposal for 21 days or 3 weeks starting today.
Now at the G7 summit, US President Joe Biden has announced $20 million in additional assistance to strengthen food security in Sri Lanka. Building on other recent funding announcements from the United States, the newly announced assistance will target Sri Lankans most in need during the current economic crisis. According to the US Embassy in Colombo, the funding aims to support a school nutrition program that will feed over 80,000 Sri Lankan students and provide food vouchers for over 27,000 pregnant and lactating women over the next 15 months. The effort also plans to support approximately 30,000 farmers through the contribution of agricultural assistance and cash in order to increase food production in vulnerable Sri Lankan communities. US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung said that President Biden's announcement of $20 million in additional assistance to Sri Lanka demonstrates the ongoing commitment to food security, public health, and the economic well-being of the Sri Lankan people. Now, a Gazette Extraordinary was published detailing the duties, functions, and institutional and legal frameworks of the recently established Ministry of Investment Promotion. Moreover, the Gazette highlights a number of departments and institutions the ministry is to be leading. Following then Minister Basil Rajapaksa's resignation, Parliament welcomed entrepreneur Dhammika Perera as the Minister of Investment Promotion, who has proposed an action plan to bring in more dollar values to Sri Lanka.
Following business tycoon Dhammika Perera's appointment as the Minister of Investment Promotion, an extraordinary gazette was issued yesterday underlying the key duties and functions of his new ministry. As per the gazette, the Board of Investment, Colombo Port Economic Commission, project related to Colombo Port City, Department of Immigration and Emigration, Colombo Lotus Tower Management Company Private Limited, Technopark Development Company Private Limited, and Information Technology Parks comes under the purview of Ministry of Investment Promotion. The ministry's duty is to formulate, implement, monitor, and evaluate policies, programs and projects in relation to the subject of investment promotion and those subjects that come under the purview of departments, statutory institutions and public corporations of the ministry based on the national policies implemented by the government and in accordance with the policy statement Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor. The ministry should also promote the economic potential in Sri Lanka and thereby promote foreign direct investment and private sector investment. The Gazette also highlights the development of Colombo Port City Special Economic Zone as an international business and services hub with specialized infrastructure and other facilities aimed at national interest and economic advancement as a duty and function of the ministry. Two ministers, including Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara, left for Qatar this morning in a bid to secure fuel stocks to Sri Lanka. The ministers have met with the Qatari Minister for State of Energy Affairs to discuss the supply of petroleum products, LPG and LNG to Sri Lanka to overcome the energy crisis. The ministers also met with the Deputy Director General of the Qatari Fund for Development, where discussions were carried out on a possible credit line facility for petroleum and gas supply to Sri Lanka. Yesterday, the government took a decision to limit its fuel distribution from the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation storage terminals only to essential services such as ports, health sector, distribution of essential food items and transportation of agricultural products until the 10th of July. Minister of Transport and Cabinet spokesperson Dr. Bandula Gunawardana said that a mechanism will be set up to provide a continuous supply of LP gas and fuel after the 10th of next month. Despite this message, the public continued to queue up near fuel stations with intentions of pumping their tanks. In this backdrop, CPC filling stations that had fuel in their stocks issued them under token system with the support of the Triforce's personnel. With fuel of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation restricted to essential services, the Lanka Indian Oil Company, however, said that their filling stations will continue to distribute fuel for non-essential service vehicles as well. Its general manager said that the token system will be in operation at its stations. During this crisis situation, the government is still unable to announce an exact date on the arrival of a fuel shipment to the country, which has led to the rise of public agitations. In a bid to secure fuel supply to the country,
two cabinet ministers, including Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara and the Minister of Environment Nazir Ahmad, left for Qatar this morning. During the visit, the Energy Minister met with the Minister of State of Energy Affairs and the President and CEO of Qatar Energy, Saad Sharira Al-Khabi, to discuss the supply of petroleum products, liquefied petroleum gas and liquefied natural gas to Sri Lanka to overcome the energy crisis. Further, the two ministers also met with the Deputy Director General of the Qatar Fund for Development. Further, the two ministers also met with the Deputy Director General of the Qatar Fund for Development, where discussions were held on a possible credit line facility for petroleum and gas supply. The ministers also informed the funds have been allocated for medical supplies and will consider the request for a credit facility. Meanwhile, yesterday, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa met with Russian Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Yuri Materi, to discuss matters pertaining to coal, gas, air travel and the economy. At the moment, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation contributes around 90% of the total fuel supply to the country, while the remaining 10% is supplied by the Ceylon Indian Oil Company. With that being the case, ensuring an uninterrupted fuel supply to the country has become a challenge due to the current foreign exchange crisis in Sri Lanka. In this backdrop, entering into long-term agreements with oil companies in the oil-producing countries enable them to import and sell fuel using funds which will not put pressure on the country and foreign exchange. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal to provide long-term agreements with selected companies following the formal procedure, allowing them to import, distribute and market fuel to Sri Lanka. The Private Bus Owners Association says that bus fares will be increased by 30% and the minimum fare will be revised to 40 rupees with effect from the 1st of July. The decision was taken following a discussion with the officials of the National Transport Commission today. Over the past few days, bus operators have been calling for bus fare revisions in line with the recent increase in fuel prices. In the meantime, the Cabinet also approved the proposal furnished by the Minister of Transport and Highways to revise the railway charges categorized as passenger transport charges, which had not been revised for more than 5 years, and the goods transport and postal transport charges, which had not been revised approximately in 14 years. Now, the Sri Lankan High Commissioner to India held discussions with the Indian Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas and Housing and Urban Affairs in Delhi. During the meeting, it was discussed on the possibilities of securing petrol and diesel supplies that are required by Sri Lanka on an urgent basis. Meanwhile, the Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas and Housing and Urban Affairs of India assured to extend all possible support to Sri Lanka at this critical juncture. The High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to India, Milinda Morgoda, met with Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas and Housing and Urban Affairs of India, Shri Hardeep Singh Puri, to discuss urgent matters pertaining to bilateral energy cooperation. The meeting was held yesterday at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in New Delhi. At the outset, High Commissioner Morgoda briefed Minister Puri on the challenges that Sri Lanka is currently facing with regard to the supply and distribution of petroleum products and the severe hardships that the people are undergoing. Further, the Sri Lankan envoy thanked India for the assistance that was extended in the form of credit lines to import fuel. He further discussed with Minister Puri on the possibilities of securing petrol and diesel supplies that are required by Sri Lanka at present on an urgent basis. Minister Puri has responded positively in this regard and assured the High Commissioner that all possible support will be extended to Sri Lanka at this critical period. They further discussed modalities through which India and Sri Lanka could further expand cooperation in the petroleum sector to help overcome the immediate crisis and to ensure energy security in Sri Lanka. The ways in which Sri Lanka could establish long-term ties in the petroleum, oil, gas and related logistics sectors were brought into discussion by High Commissioner Morgoda and Minister Puri. We'll be back after this short commercial break. Stay with us.
Big 3.
Now, at the weekly Cabinet meeting held last evening, the Cabinet approved the publishing of the 22nd Constitutional Amendment Bill in the Government Gazette and thereafter presented it in Parliament for approval. Further, they also approved the resumption of the international operational activities of the Jaffna International Airport once again with effect from the 1st of July this year.
At last week's cabinet meeting, policy approval was given on the draft for the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution. The Constitutional Amendment Bill has been prepared by the legal draftsman, and the Attorney General has informed that the bill is in accordance with the Constitution. Consequently, the Cabinet of Ministers who met last evening approved the proposal presented by the Minister of Justice, Prison Affairs and Constitutional Reforms to publish the 22nd Amendment Bill in the Government Gazette and thereafter present the same in the Parliament for approval. In other decisions, the Cabinet approved the measures taken in relation to the resumption of international operational activities of the Jaffna International Airport once again with effect from 1st of July 2022. Internationally and locally based aeronautical companies have submitted requests for the operation of rented air tours as well as time-framed aeronautical flights from their airport to South Indian destinations. Operational activities of the airport were suspended from 15th of March 2020 due to COVID-19 pandemic circumstances prevailed during that period. Meanwhile, Cabinet has also decided to release women with children of 2 years of age or more from submission of the compulsory family background report that should be furnished prior to overseas employment.
Now, the Monetary Board of the Central Bank announced today that it will take measures to liquidate Central Investments and Finance Limited, ETI Finance Limited, TKS Finance Limited, the Finance Company PLC and the Standard Credit Finance Limited as the revival of the finance companies were not an option. The CBSL made this announcement today following the report submitted by the advisory committee that was set up to propose recommendations on the revival of the 5 failed finance companies in October last year. The advisory committee set up to propose recommendations for the revival of 5 failed finance companies presented its recommendations to the Monetary Board on the 31st of May 2022 regarding the possibility of reviving the companies. The committee, which was established in October last year, was in charge of looking into the revival of the Central Investments and Finance Limited, ETI Finance Limited, TKS Finance Limited, the Finance Company PLC, and the Standard Credit Finance Limited, of which the licenses have either been cancelled or suspended. The Monetary Board has vested the committee with the responsibility of recommending possible revival options or recommending liquidation for the 5 failed finance companies if such revival options do not seem feasible. The Monetary Board, having considered the report of the committee on the said 5 failed finance companies, noted that the proposals received for the perusal of the said committee were not feasible and entailed a number of policy and legal implications which did not appear to be workable within the existing regulatory framework. Further, given the present economic conditions, the said committee does not expect any viable proposals to be received from prospective investors. With this being the case, the only option concerning the 5 failed finance companies would be to continue with liquidation proceedings. Consequently, actions will be taken to liquidate the aforementioned 5 failed finance companies in accordance with the applicable legal provisions. In light of these developments, the committee in its report has recommended to wind up the committee. Based on the recommendation, the Monetary Board decided to dissolve the committee. Now, the Colombo stock market recorded a heavy loss for the second straight session today, owing to the distressing economic climate. As soon as the market opened, the all-share price index recorded a sharp plunge, losing over 90 points, reflecting varied investor sentiment. Afterwards, the index moved on a sideways drift while selling was witnessed on retail favorite counters before closing for the day at 7,313, losing 139 points. Meanwhile, turnover declined to 85.3 million rupees compared to the last session, with the banking sector contributing 28%, mainly led by the closing transactions of the commercial banks and transportation sector, in contributing 22% to the total turnover. However, foreign investors remain net buyers for the second consecutive day while recording low participation. The group of 7 economic powers have agreed to explore imposing a ban on transporting Russian oil that has been sold over a certain price. The war in Ukraine and its dramatic economic fallout, in particular soaring food and energy inflation, has dominated this year's summit of the group of rich democracies at a castle resort in the Bavarian Alps.
The G7 is looking at price caps as a way to prevent Moscow profiting from its invasion of Ukraine, which has sharply raised energy prices, taking the sting out of Western efforts to reduce imports of Russian oil and gas. Russian oil export revenues climbed in May even as volumes fell, the international agency said in its June monthly report. A senior US administration official has said that a ceiling on how much other countries pay Russia for oil would squeeze Russian President Vladimir Putin's resources that he has to wage war, and secondly increase stability and the security of supply in global oil markets. An EU official said that G7 leaders have also agreed to push for a ban on imports of Russian gold as part of efforts to tighten the sanctions squeeze on Moscow. The war, which has killed thousands and sent millions fleeing, entered its fifth month with no signs of abating. G7 nations want to crank up pressure on Russia without stoking already soaring inflation that is causing strains at home and savaging developing nations.
Now, meanwhile, the poisonous gas leak in Jordan's southern port city of Aqaba yesterday killed at least 13 people and injured 260 others. According to officials, the leak came after a tank filled with 25 tons of chlorine gas being exported to the Djibouti fell while being transported as a result of train malfunction.
According to state media reports, a leak of toxic chlorine gas at Jordan's Red Sea port of Aqaba killed at least 13 people, injuring more than 260 others. Authorities said that a chemical storage container filled in 25 tons of chlorine gas fell while being transported as a result of a crane malfunction. CCTV footage showed the container being hoisted into the air and then suddenly dropping onto a ship and exploding. A large cloud of bright yellow gas is seen spreading across the ground, sending people running for safety. However, state media reports that 123 of the injured were still being treated at local hospitals for chemical exposure. Meanwhile, some of them were reported in a critical condition. Inhaling high levels of chlorine causes fluid to build up in the lungs, a life-threatening condition known as pulmonary edema. According to state authorities, a team of hazardous materials specialists from Jordan's civil defense were dispatched to the scene of incident, and the area has been quarantined. However, residents of the Aqaba city, which is 16 kilometers north of the port, were advised to stay inside and close windows and doors following the leak. After several hours, the Minister of State for Media Affairs declared that the toxic leak had been brought under control and no longer posed any risk to the city and its residents.
Now, Japan has faced scorching temperatures for a fourth consecutive day, with the heat in Tokyo breaking nearly a 150-year-old record for June. However, scientists warn of extreme weather conditions which have caused widespread upheaval across the globe to become more frequent due to the worsening climate crisis.
Japan is baking under scorching heat as temperatures in the country's capital Tokyo broke 150-year-old records for June. A high of 34 degrees Celsius was predicted for Tokyo today after 3 successive days of temperatures topping 35 Celsius, the worst streak of hot weather in June since record began in 1875. With that being the case, more than 250 people were taken to hospitals in Tokyo on Saturday and Sunday for treatment of heat stroke. Amid the extreme heat, the Japanese government has issued a warning about a power crunch, with authorities asking consumers in the Tokyo area to conserve electricity. But they added that residents should do what was needed to stay cool and avoid heat stroke. The Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry said in a statement yesterday to save as much as power as possible, such as by turning off lights that are not in use. The sweltering temperatures are forecast to last for the rest of the week and possibly worsen within the week as well.
Now that's all from us here at First at 9. Good night.